Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'd like to say first that I'm very proud and full of hope to learn that young people like you are creating something as beautiful as this graphic novel, which is why I'm very happy to be here to share my experience and advice on how to create an engaging story based on myths and legends. Before we start, I'd like to thank Miss Lorna for inviting me. When she told me about your project, I got very excited and jealous, to be honest. Growing up, I didn't get a chance like this to express myself in one of the most beautiful medium in storytelling, which is why you should all appreciate what Miss Lorna and all the people who are working on this project with you are doing for you. So let's get into it. My name is Ahmed Al-Amin. It might be difficult to pronounce, which is why you can call me by my Chinese name, Hamida. No, I'm not joking. If you lived in China for a while, like I did, you get to have a Chinese name. And that is a good example of how living somewhere else can impact a character. So if you take Greek gods from Greece and you place them in Oxford, you are bound to change some things in your character, am I right? So when you write your story, when you try to get these ideas, try to think how you can fit those characters into Oxford, or even how to fit Oxford with your character. So I'm going to tell you about my story, the project I'm working on. So maybe it will help you write your own story. The story I'm working on is called The Epics of Enkidu, and it features a hero with autism, and it is a sequel to the oldest story found in human history. It is actually inspired by my dear nephew, who is an awesome autistic kid, and I want to do something for him because I love him so much. I want to do something to dedicate to him, but at that time I didn't know what to do, what kind of story it should be. And when I read the oldest story in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, I noticed one character in particular, who is a very key character in this story, named Enkidu. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh is about a tyrant Uruk king, who later becomes a good person, and the one who influenced him to be a good person is Enkidu. And they both go into adventures and fight some monsters, and Enkidu ends up in the underworld, while Gilgamesh tries to find the secret to the everlasting life and eventually accepts that he's just mortal. When I read that story, I noticed how Enkidu was described as he was an outcast, someone who's different from society, and suddenly clicked. I started to see Enkidu as an autistic person. Maybe whoever wrote that story knew someone who's autistic long before the term autism was used to describe people on the spectrum. I mean, in the past, what used to be magic or witchcraft is now today is science. Am I right? And that's how I got the idea to get this story. When I noticed how those characters are acting or interacting in those tales, I started to merge them with our perspective and how we are looking at them. The other reason why I wrote this story is because I wanted to raise acceptance and awareness about autism, which is something you should think about when you write your own story. If you want to say something to the reader, try to say something that will, help to make the world a better place. So all going to be working to create one story. Now, from my experience, this requires a little bit planning, which I'm sure your Oxonians are more than capable to manage. It is a little tricky though. Now, I'm not sure where you are in creating the graphic novel right now, so I'll presume that you haven't started yet. There's nothing wrong in hearing the same advice again. It could be refreshing for you. Now, most people would say, let's start brainstorming. I really believe that this should be the third step, especially in a project like yours, because you're going to be writing about Greek gods and goddesses, existing characters in a specific location. If you suddenly start brainstorming and then move on to research or reading about the characters or searching the urban legends or folktales from Oxford, you're going to end up to take a step back to brainstorming again, because you're going to find some new information that you want to share to create this story, and this will hinder your progress, and it's all about moving forward together. So I believe brainstorming should be postponed. You should actually start by picking your characters. Which gods or goddesses are you going to be talking about, and the locations. What are the locations? And then comes my favorite part, actually, the research. You can research the gods and what are the characters you're trying to make in the story, and whether they're human or gods or goddesses. And you search the location and urban legends of Oxford, and you'll end up with different ideas. For example, the god Dionysus, a Greek god, who's the god of many things, including theater. He could be running or somehow related to the Sheldonian theater of Oxford. So yeah, so this is one way to look at it. So now that you are more prepared, you can start the brainstorming process. Your collective brains are now prepared to throw ideas and to come up with something very exciting, and then you can move on forward to writing the comic. So how do you write a graphic novel? It is almost similar to writing a movie script, and when you're brainstorming, try to brainstorm each section, so we start like brainstorming the beginning of the story, which is called the inciting event. What's that, you're asking? It's the event that starts the journey, the thing that draws the characters into the plot, and this will lead to the first plot point, which is usually the obstacle. What are the challenges the characters are dealing with? Are they related to the past? Are they related to Oxford? Maybe even both. In that moment, the characters take actions and decisions, and these eventually, in good stories, usually lead to something called the plot twist, the second plot point, that's when everything seems lost. All hope is lost, and everything seems to be, nothing works. For the characters, of course, and that's when the characters should stop reacting and start acting. This is where the characters need to change what they're doing and pull their issues together so they can deal with this obstacle or whatever is happening, whatever you're creating in the story. And this will lead to the highest point of the story, the climax, which is usually around the end of the story. And after that, you just tie the loose ends and hopefully do the best ending you can write. So remember, when you're brainstorming, try to brainstorm each part separately, and if you have to go back to a different section in the story, whether it's inciting event or the plot, the first plot or the obstacle or whatever, if you feel like you have to go back, then it's fine. Sometimes you get different ideas while moving forward and you want to go backward. This is fine. In that case, you can go backward and forward in the story. Now you got your story planned and you want to move on to create your characters. Not so fast. I mean, if you worked really, really hard to create this idea, don't you want it to look good to the readers? I'm assuming you're all nodding in agreement. So how do we do that? So comic book have panels. These square, sometimes triangular things that the story happens inside them. And usually in each story, when you try to create a graphic novel, you have to bear in mind that each page should have 5 to 7 panels. The average of maximum panels is 5 to 7. Some people go beyond that. The minimum is actually 1. Why is that important? Because if you want the pages to move faster, you just place less panels, and if you want the pages to be slower, you add more panels. And this also will affect the dialogue, because you cannot fit more than 3, maybe even 4. You shouldn't fit more than 4 word balloons, because each word balloon you can only fit around an average of 35 words. So when you write the dialogue of each character, you have to keep that in mind. How many words the characters say on each panel if you're writing the story. So the final advice I can give you is called the page turning device. The thing that keeps the reader wants to know more. How do you accomplish that? How can you make the reader wants to turn the page and never want to stop reading your story? The best advice I could tell you is to end each panel with something that wants the reader want to flip the page. An example of that from my comic, The Epic of Enkidu, is this. A person throws a punch at Enkidu, and at the end of the panel, I don't show what happens. So when the reader reach at that point, he or she will have no choice but to flip the page to see what will happen next. And it's another example you can use if you want in your story is at the last panel, one character will say, I need to tell you a very important secret to another character, and that's it. So whoever is reading that will not close the book and throw it away. Of course, they're gonna skip. They're gonna flip the page to see what's that secret. So try to end each panel with a mini cliffhanger, if you can. I think I told you everything you need to know. Remember, try to be a team, work together, and keep your eyes and ears open for any information you can use in your story. Thank you for having me here. I look really forward to reading your story. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask. I'll try to get back at you as fast as possible. All right? And have a nice day and stay healthy. Goodbye.